Hello, my name is Bert Hernandez, and let me welcome you to the Think and Grow Rich Weekly Success Calls. The Think and Grow Rich Weekly Success Calls are brought to you by our Think and Grow Rich Mastermind and Study Group on Facebook. If you would like to join our free study and mastermind group, just check the link in the description box below. The Think and Grow Rich Success Calls cover a variety of subjects. We focus on understanding the writings of Napoleon Hill, Anthony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Brendan Burchard, John Maxwell, and many others of today's leading motivational speakers and teachers. In our group, we focus on creating a definite main purpose statement, as Napoleon Hill directed us to do in many of his great works. Most people never take this step and therefore never really accomplish what they want. Subscribe to our channel and you will find a great deal of valuable content, and join our Facebook group as well. The links are in the description box below. On today's call, we're going to be discussing the Billionaire success formula, how a simple-minded, good old high school football coach was able to turn $40,000 into a $1.4 billion fortune using the principles in Think and Grow Rich. Stay tuned, because you're not going to want to miss this. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Think and Grow Rich Success Call. My name is Bert Hernandez, and I'm the founder of the Think and Grow Rich Facebook group and community page, which has over 30,000 members here on Facebook. I want to thank everyone for setting aside the time to be on this call, and believe me, you will want to take notes. A few years back, I was at a Yannick Silver seminar, and Yannick ran this huge seminar. It was like $5,000. It was out in California, and he ran it for a few years. It was called the Underground Seminar. It was basically for internet marketers, which is what I was heavily involved in back in 2001 through 2012. And one of the strategies, probably one of the best techniques or strategies that I ever heard on how to get the most from a seminar or a webinar like this one. Yannick said that we should have two notepads or two pieces of paper when we're at an event like this. One of the notepads or papers is for us to take notes. Whatever we hear from the speakers, we write it down. And the second notepad or piece of paper, you were to write on the top of it, actions I need to take. He said that basically what everybody does is they go to a seminar and they take all these incredible notes, and then they go back and they never implement them because they never really review all their notes. By having a separate sheet of paper with the actions that you have identified, you walk away from that seminar or webinar with an action plan. And consequently, you can act on that action plan to get things done. I think you should, if you will trust me on it, take this recommendation and apply it today. Just take two sheets of paper, one for you to take notes. And typically what I tell most people and what I do is I don't necessarily take notes on what the author says, but the ideas that what they are saying inspires me. And of course, as I'm thinking of this, I begin to jot down what I'm going to implement so that I can walk away with this incredible action plan. Now, as I said, I strongly urge you to begin this practice. I have, and it has helped me immeasurably. Today's topic is the Billionaire success formula. And it used to be Millionaire success formula, but $1 million is nothing these days. Basically, of the value of in order to have the same value as $1 million was years ago, you would need at least 10 million. Now, most companies have become billion-dollar companies, and individuals have become billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and those type of individuals. And the other day I was listening to a recording from Grant Cardone, and he mentioned something like a billionaire. And at first I said, wow, I couldn't be a billionaire. We have that two-sided angel on us, the one that tells us we can and the one that tells us why we can't. And I started thinking about it, and I began doing some research, and I found out that most people have become billionaires, and initially it took 20 years for some people. like Zuckerberg, it took him 10 years. Bezos, about the same amount of time, I think it was 6 years. But I recently read that somebody did it in 2.5 years. And of course, these are highly leveraged internet companies. But I started thinking about that, and I said, you know what? All it takes is one idea, one sound idea to make a fortune. So why not $1 billion in 10 years? Who knows? Because once you understand what you're going to listen to today and what you will learn, you may decide that you want to be a billionaire. So we're going to talk about how a dumb old high school football coach with a degree from Mississippi State University, I believe it was, in arts and sciences, that's going to get you far in this world, was able to achieve financial independence. It took him 21 years. But I remind you that this was before the internet boom or highly leveraged IPOs, internet initial public offerings. And he started out, as I mentioned, as a high school football coach earning $10,700 per year. But because he believed in himself and he took a big risk, he became a winner. And by 1991, 21 years later, he had a net worth of $1.4 billion. The recording you're about to hear will reveal to you the Napoleon Hill method, or the Andrew Carnegie Secret, if you will, that has been responsible for more millionaires and billionaires than any other method. Now, I could go on with a long list of individuals that have used the secrets that you're about to learn, but it would take up too much time. So I strongly request that you turn up your speakers, grab that pen and piece of paper or laptop or whatever instrument you use for recording important information, and get ready to open your minds to how you can achieve and have everything you want in your life. Now, I've never done this before this way, but it's supposed to work, so let's give it a go.
Y'all sit down. We got a lot to do. I got a lot to cover. If y'all can hang in there, and if I can hang in there, we're going to do some good stuff. We've been dealing with the heart thing mostly. Get your brochure out and look for Napoleon Hill's Formula for Financial Success. Now we're dealing again with the heart thing, and I've gone through and told you what happened to me. That it was just like lightning striking me in so many cases. You know, when my cousin showed me the difference in buy term invest, the difference in how they had screwed my mom and how they had screwed me and Angela, and then I started learning more about cash value life insurance. Those jokers pay you 0% interest. You know, the cash surrender value the first year, they charge you 6 to 7% to borrow your own money, and you lose it if you die. And then I started thinking, studying all these other things, how hedge funds and all these people screw you out there, and how I could really go in a home and just really save you from making a lot of financial mistakes, you know, and if you made those mistakes, help you correct it. In ITT, after I'd been with them about 2 years, 2.5 years, right before I went full-time, they had a meeting with Napoleon Hill that wrote Think and Grow Rich in Atlanta, Georgia. And I never read that whole book, but I read about 70 or 80 pages of it. And he had spent his entire adult life studying successful men and women in all areas, you know, financial success and professional success and all this kind of stuff. And he found the 6 common denominators that all of them use. I told you one of my life lessons, one of those unwritten laws, I gave you 99 of them, you know, on your handouts there, is if you tell me something, then I want to go check you out. I don't want to listen to somebody that hadn't done it that gives me a bunch of theory. I want to go check you out and make sure you know what you're talking about, right? And so I was listening to Napoleon Hill speak, and he said, you know, I studied all these successful men and women in all these different areas of life, and I found they all had 6 common denominators. Well, folks, that got my attention, and I got that book, and I read them, and I applied it to my life, and it's one of the most, I did this with every A.L. Williams recruit for years, okay? Now, you got to go back and apply. You know, I saved $42,000 in 1967 through 6 months of 1969. And if you translate that into what inflation and all that, what that's worth today, it's $278,000. Okay, so this is, you remember this is 1969, okay, numbers, okay? But you've got to apply this to your life right now. I did this with every recruit. It was life-changing for me. I never thought, my folks never had any money. Now, I didn't know anybody in Cairo, Georgia that had any money. I had the greatest life in the world, though. You understand that? I had more love and security and all the important things a kid could hope for. When I left Cairo, Georgia, with my parents and Coach Taylor, I felt good about Art Williams. Nobody could have had a more blessed life than I. But I didn't know anybody that had ever had any money. And I didn't ever think Art Williams could be financially independent, you know, until I got these 6 steps here. And this changed my life so much that I did it with every recruit that we brought in A.O. Williams for years. Okay? Let's look at this, if you will. You must have a specific goal. I was earning $10,700 a year as an athletic redhead football coach. And after thinking about, worrying about it, I decided my specific goal, I wanted to have an income of $30,000 a year because I was making $10,000 or $15,000 a year part-time with ITT, $10,000 in coaching, and we were living great. And I said, if I could have a $30,000 a year income and keep my expenses where they are right now, then I'm financially independent, right? Nobody can ever put their thumb on me. I can tell everybody to go get screwed, right? And so I said, I need a $30,000 a year income guaranteed life. Okay? Then step number 2, you must have a specific time to achieve your goal. I'd never done this as a coach or even part-time. I'd never done this. I never thought in financially independent, right? But he said you must have a specific time. So I decided I was 28 years old, and I would achieve this in 10 years. Now, some of you, it might take you 20 years, 15 years when you work this out, 30 years, okay? You just got to work it out. It's got to be realistic. Janine, while I'm doing this, would you come up and grab the mic, please? You must write it down. As Angela said, I had sticky pads on my the mirror window in my bathroom. I had on my calendar, in my little day calendar, events, for appointments and all that kind of stuff, you know. I had this on there every day. Folks, I looked at this thing for years. I'd look at it 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. Every time I missed a sale and it just cut my guts out, I'd go look at this and say, okay, that's the price you're paying to be financially independent where nobody would have their thumb on you, you know. Every time one of my best guys quit, I'd go look at these goals. I'd say, okay, Art, if you can just hang there for 10 years and just keep doing it. I was doing it, but there was so much hurt in this business, right? So many disappointments. But then I wrote it down. I had a specific time, 10 years to do it. Step number 4. You got to develop a plan. It's not good enough just to wish for financial independence and pick out when you want to have it in 10 years and write it down. You got to develop a plan. You can't just go half-butted through life, right? So I listened to Napoleon Hill. I made my plan out. This was life-changing to me. I'd save $40,000 or $42,000 in 2.5 years working part-time. And if I committed that $40,000 for 10 years, and I could get a 10% interest, and every 10-year period in mutual funds from 1929, they had averaged 10 or 12%, right? And that's what I was doing. So I was already there. My savings would grow to $100,000. Now I had to have $300,000, next paragraph, to get the 10% interest off my mutual funds and never touch my principal, and that'd go on forever. And if I kept my standard of living like it was, I'd be financially independent. I didn't have to make $10 zillion to be financially independent, right? To live like I was living and provide for my family. If I save money, isn't that something? And so to get that $200,000, I had to save $1,000 a month. Well, I was already doing that. $1,000 a month. So then that's when I decided to go full-time. This was so important to me. I felt like this was my moment to do something great, okay, for me and my family, that I decided to go full-time. And so I figured that out, how I'd have that $300,000. And then I decided, number 5, what price are you willing to pay? And that was that was to give up coaching, something I really love. I had my best football team coming back, but I said, you know, that's the price I'm willing to pay. And then you got to think about reaching it every day. You got to look at that thing every day, not every other day, every day. And I did it multiple times every day when I was working with Janine in my little inner circle. I had her and Mike figure this out. She and Mike looked at things, and they had 2 offices, and they decided to close one office, and I think they had something they could sell that would give them some cash. And she began to start working with me on this thing. Go through it with me, Janine.
So he had asked what our goal was over the next 5-10 years. What was it that our financial independence goal that we had kind of lost focus of? And so he said, well, how much money are you saving a month? You know, write that down. You have 5 minutes, and then fax it to me. And I was like, oh, my gosh. So I write everything down, fax it over to him. And we were only at that time saving $1,000 a month. And within a couple of months, we had about $450,000 saved. And he said, okay, so you want to move forward. What do you need to save a month? And I said, well, $3,500. So from September to December, we moved from $1,000 a month to $3,500 a month, and this year saved $37,000 in retirement, and just really staying focused. By the end of December, we're on auto increase, so we'll be at $5,000 a month by the end of December.
And how long before you and Mike will be financially independent?
We'll be done in 7 years.
Now, you never thought about that. You never thought that could happen to you and Mike, right, Janine?
No, sir.
Now, that's like building people. You know, I said last night to you, I said, I hope something will happen to you today that'll make you a better leader for your people. Is that just, it changed you, right?
Yeah,
it changed me. Those are earth-shaking, mind-boggling things. That's what I did with every new recruit in A.O. Williams. Thank you. I love you, Jeannie.
Thank you. I love you.
See, I realized early on this business was not just about selling life insurance. This is, you know, I thought it was early, you know. But then I began to realize how it affected me, how it affected Janine and Mike, John, Andy, Guy. It's just unbelievable. I mean, we were changing people's lives. I mean, you didn't want to give up coaching, and that's what you were trained to be, right? I didn't want to give up coaching, and it tore my butt up to give up coaching, right? I started coaching in the 5th grade, right? But I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to do something big, important with my life. And all of a sudden, I saw all these wonderful people making these decisions to come to AOE, and I realized, just like with Janine, all of a sudden they had no plan to be financially independent. They were just throwing money away here and throwing money away there and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they went through these 6 steps, and they were focused. And in 7 years, now is that worth the aggravation, the heartaches, the disappointments of this business? The pile of crap people can throw at you to be totally stone wealthy. And you know what? See, you don't have to look at some of these guys that are making $1 million a year and all this kind of crap, okay? You've got to concentrate on you. We had so many people in AOE that made $1 million, but they spent $2 million, okay? And you see that with professional athletes all the time, Warren, how they sign these $20 million contracts, and 10 years later they're bankrupt, you know? See, I taught my guys in A.O. Williams, it's not what you earn that's important. It's what you save that's important, right? You look at your lifestyle, just like Janine and Mike did. This is what their lifestyle was, right? And if they could just corner all of their income and their investments and all, and if they could get a little bit smarter and focus and have a plan, isn't that something? It changed my life. That's the important things. And then if you go back, guys, to your people, every new recruit, that it was not like every other new recruit. It takes a lot of time. Me and Janine personally spent quite a few telephone conversations on this, right? See, most people, it takes a lot of time. And I felt like all of a sudden I started seeing all these wonderful people like Andy joining A.O. Williams, and I felt like they were betting their life on A.O. Williams. That puts a lot of responsibility on you. You understand that? I got to make sure we got the money. I got to make sure we got the support. I got to make all that kind of crap, right? And then I began to realize the power of selling dreams, the power of selling hope, the power of selling opportunity. I began to understand that what I was offering people was so much more than selling buy term and invest the difference, so much more than selling IRAs. I was changing people's lives. And then I had a flashback to coaching days. And in my experience, through coaching in A.O. Williams, I find that most kids, or most people in their life, the most exciting time in their life is going to high school. It was so much fun working with those kids in high school. They'd come in that 9th grade, and their eyes would be as big as a baseball. And man, they were so pumped up. They were playing on teams and in the band or in beauty contest or whatever. And they were so pumped up about life. They felt so important. They felt they were going to be something. They were going to be somebody. And then they graduate, and they get dumped out in the world, and people start lying to them and screwing them and using them. And then one day, this vibrant, pumped up, turned on human being becomes a shell of a man. And they feel like life's just dumped on them. Life's passed them by. And they wake up one morning and their foot hits the floor and they say, life's dealt me a bad hand. I wanted to be somebody. I thought I was going to be somebody at one time. But life's just dumped on me. And I'm just going to be a nobody. I'm just going to be a nothing. And then A.O. Williams comes into their life. And we offer
Okay, sorry about that. Just couldn't find the unmute button. So I wanted to share that with you because I wanted you to hear the passion that he had for this. Art Williams, back in 1977, started A.L. Williams, which was a small insurance agency out of Georgia. And he brought with him 85 people. And he took what he had learned about creating a definite main purpose statement or a definite main purpose, and he taught it to all of them. People like Hubert Humphrey, who created a fortune within 12 months of joining the company. He was making 6 figures. He was a guy that was a former railroad conductor making $15,000 a year. Rich Thawley, a former football coach, who today is a multimillionaire. Each of these 85 people that took Art's message to heart, the message you heard today, applied it and created incredible wealth in their lives. But more importantly, they also created lives that they wanted because they weren't making money. And of course, this is a capitalistic system. We do need to have money for whatever it is you want. You can't achieve great health if you don't have money because you can't afford health insurance and you can't afford to buy the right foods. So I'm going to go over with you the Art Williams $1 billion formula. And I want you to think about this idea. It was recently given to me. And that is, and you can put whatever number you want on it, but I'll put it to you the way it was put to me. What is the deadline by which you will have a net worth of $1 million? Do you know? If you don't know, why not? You know, I was recently reading an article, and 46% of Americans are inadequately prepared for retirement. They don't have enough money. And the article talked about that most people need somewhere around $5 million, you know, and that's based on the low interest rates that we have today, 2-3%. So if you're going to get 2% interest on $5 million, that's $100,000 in income. Of course, you don't need that much because you can essentially annuitize the money. You figure out what your life expectancy is,
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. Art Williams sold the company in 1991, I believe it was. 21 years, 1991. 1999. And the reason he sold it is because he had a health history of heart problems in his family. His father died in his 40s of heart disease, and Art himself had a pacemaker. And the reason that this story kind of touched me, besides the fact that I was a regional vice president with A.L. Williams back in many years back after I left Prudential, but what really struck me is that back in 2012, beginning of 2013, I was put into the hospital for 6 weeks with congestive heart failure. And I didn't know what congestive heart failure is, and many people still don't. But the problem with congestive heart failure is that of all the heart diseases that you can have, it's the one that kills you. You can have a heart attack and still live. They can if you don't crash, they can put a stent in you. You can change your diet. You can begin exercising, and you'll live a long life. Congestive heart failure doesn't work that way. Congestive heart failure is the failure of the left ventricle of the heart. The way the heart works is the blood is squeezed out of the left ventricle, and the heart, when it pumps, it kind of rings itself, like ringing a mop. It twists, and it's that twisting action that pushes the blood out of the heart. And the life expectancy is really bad with congestive heart failure. Typically, most people don't even make 1 year. Less than 13% survive 5 years. Now, I came out of the hospital in February of 2013, so technically last year was my 5th year that I survived. Going forward, the statistics get worse. The possibility of a person with congestive heart failure living 10 years is less than 3%. Typically what's going to happen is either the heart will fail and you'll die, or they'll catch it in time and you'll need a heart transplant. And that presents a whole another array of issues. So when I started looking at my retirement plans, I had to take a look at what my life expectancy would be. And some hard decisions had to be made. Nothing like facing the truth. So I tell you this because most of you don't have this issue. And, one of the things that happened to me as a result of the congestive heart failure, and look, I was in bad shape. My heart was pumping. When I left the hospital after 6 weeks and $500,000 almost, I was only pumping out 10% of the blood that's in my heart. A normal human will pump out between 55 and 75%. And so that means that the 6 weeks prior to leaving the hospital, my heart had to be pumping out much less than 10%, because that was after 6 weeks of medication, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I had to understand about myself is that I'm an A-type personality, alpha male type personality, and A-type personalities are stressors, and we push ourselves harder than we should. And so I had to learn to back away from that type of behavior. And one of the things that essentially saved my life was a positive mental attitude. And the way that I was able to accomplish that is through a definite main purpose. And so here are the steps that Art talks about. And these are the same steps that you will find on, I think it's page 34. Let's go see. Let's look at my handy-dandy Think and Grow Rich book. Now, the steps are mentioned in many different spots in the book. But if you have the old classic version, in this copy, it's on page 42. And it starts with the method by which desire for riches can be transmuted into its financial equivalent consists of 6 definite practical steps. Now, these are the 6 steps that Art heard Napoleon Hill back in 1969 share with the audience. And Art was, not the brightest guy in the world, but he walked away from that meeting and said, hey, if Napoleon Hill interviewed 500 and by the time he was done over 20,000 individuals, and he says that these people use this method to achieve their success, who am I to doubt it? Now, how many of you and how many of us have read Think and Grow Rich and blown right by this suggestion in the book? Now, perhaps Napoleon Hill did everybody an injustice by not telling you that that's the secret in the book. The secret is those 6 steps. And all the other principles are there to help you implement those 6 steps. And so I'm going to tell you the 6 steps as Art Williams wrote it down. And so first, step 1 is you must have a specific goal. Now, as Art puts it, I was earning $10,700 per year as an athletic director and head football coach. After days of thinking and worrying, I decided on my specific goal. I wanted an income of $30,000 a year guaranteed for life. Now, this was back in 1969. And $30,000 a year back then was probably a decent paycheck. Nothing that we could aspire to today for sure. Step 2, you must have a specific time to achieve your goal. By when? What is the specific deadline? Now, I like to set goals based on my date of birth. So most of my goals have deadlines of February 20th, so you can remember my birthday and perhaps wish me happy birthday on Facebook or whatever. And so, by having that as a deadline, when I achieve my goals, I celebrate. And I celebrate my birthday and the achievement of my goal. Because most of us, as we get older, we tend to not celebrate our birthdays. So you must have a specific time. By when will you have that $1 million? That's the first step you have to begin. Writing it down, and you must write it down. So step 2 is, he says, I was 28 years old and decided I would work and sacrifice for 10 years to achieve my goal. I would be financially independent by age 38. Have you made a decision by when you'll be financially independent? By when your income will be enough to pay all your bills? Now, this $30,000 also meant that he couldn't raise his lifestyle. So he'd have to maintain the same lifestyle that he had. That was what he decided. Step 3, you must write it down. Your goal must be specific, and you must write it down as a commitment. Now, Art says, I cut out a piece of cardboard, wrote down my goal, and placed it in my pocket daily calendar. So I would see it every time I scheduled an appointment. That's the goal card technique that Bob Proctor, well, really it wasn't even Bob Proctor. It was Earl Nightingale that suggested writing your goal on a business card or a 3x5 card. And I strongly suggest you do that as well. Now, you can't just do the goal card. You have to actually say it out loud, and we'll get into that in a second. Step 4, you must develop a plan to achieve your goal. Now, at first, the plan isn't that critical that you have a perfect plan, but you must create a plan. If your goal is to become a millionaire, the plan can be simply learning more about investments, learning about mutual funds, learning about real estate. Whatever instrument you're going to use, do some research. As far as creating wealth, real estate has been and probably will continue to be one of the best tools you can use for developing a fortune. So he had a simple plan. He had saved $40,000 in 2.5 years of working part-time. So the secret to his success was that he had a side gig. And in today's economy and in today's world, you can't depend on just one job to reach financial independence. You got to create a side gig, whatever it might be. Maybe in the beginning it might be something like working Lyft or Uber, or maybe delivering pizzas, or maybe security work. Whatever it is, that's where you start. For me, while I was going through college, I did a lot of security work. It allowed me time to read uninterrupted. I usually took the night shift from midnight to 8 a.m. And, I'd sneak in a few winks in between the rounds. But it allowed me to do my studying uninterrupted. But it was a sacrifice because I would work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I would do doubles So Friday I would work from midnight to 8. Then I would go out and sell on Saturdays. And then at midnight on Saturday night, I'd work midnight to 8 and then from 8 to 4. So in a period of 3 days, I would do somewhere around 24 to 30 hours so that I could, buy books, pay tuition, all that fun stuff. Later on, as I became better, once I went into sales, I initially continued doing that type of work until I realized that that wasn't the best use of my time. So he says, if I committed my $40,000 for 10 years and could get 10% interest, my savings would be worth $100,000. Now, the market's averaged since 1929 between 8 to 10%. So that's what he was basing this number from. And also this was written in the 1970s, 1969, 1970, where interest rates were still high. I figured that if I accumulated $300,000 cash and received 10% interest, I could withdraw $30,000 each year and never touch the principal. This $30,000 would go on forever. But I needed $300,000. And I had only figured out how to get $100,000 by investing the $40,000 I had saved. I was still $200,000 short. I knew that at 10% interest, I would have to save $1,000 per month for 10 years. $300,000 would equal $30,000 a year for life. Now I had a final plan. Invest my $40,000 for 10 years and invest $1,000 per month for 10 years. $300,000 would equal $30,000 a year for life. Step number 5, you must decide what kind of price you are willing to pay. Saving $1,000 was tough for me, but I knew that I wanted to be totally financially independent in 10 years. That's what it would take. There's no free lunch. Part of the price that Art had to pay is he had to quit his coaching job. And as he mentioned in the audio that you heard earlier, he had all his best seniors coming back. He was set up, and he had won many awards as a coach. And that probably was one of the secrets of his success as well, is that he was great at pumping people up, so to speak, or as he calls it, pushing people up. And so he had to make a sacrifice. He had to give up something he loved, coaching these kids, in order to achieve total financial independence. So that's the price that he paid. Now, if you read the 6 steps, you know that one of the steps is decide what you're willing to give in return for the money. But step 6 is the most critical one. Step 6, you must think about reaching your goal every day. There was not one day I didn't think about how great it was going to be financially independent. Those dreams made me keep trying when I wanted to quit. Now, in addition to that, step 6 also says that you must see and feel and believe that you are already in possession of the money. And the critical factor is that you must write down the statement and you must say it out loud. And there's a reason why it must be said out loud. And that is that when you first write this stuff down, these goals, you're not going to believe them. How can you believe them? You've never accomplished them. And so consequently, you need to convince yourself. So you must have faith. And faith is really not the religious term, but faith in yourself. You must say it out loud because it's only through repetition that you begin to believe it. As Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, even a lie repeated often enough becomes the truth. And so you must begin to say it out loud. And you must create this statement, this definite main purpose statement. You must emotionalize it. If when you say your statement, if you don't get emotional about it, if it doesn't make you want to cry or want to celebrate, if it doesn't draw an emotion from you, you need to go back and rewrite it. Now, today, Josh Rivera, who was in my mastermind group for over 2 years, posted a video of him getting ready to do a presentation. And he was probably, Josh referred me to over 10 clients, and I could never thank him enough how he helped me out. But his story was interesting, and I urge you, if you're in the Think and Grow Rich group or in the Think and Grow Rich community, go watch the video, because Josh's story is pretty amazing. When he came into my group, I was running a free group doing this, and then after spending 6 months doing it, it was just too much time, too time-consuming. So I was about to, end it, but then somebody asked me to continue and to charge for it, and so I appeased everybody and did it. I wasn't making any real money for the time I'm putting in. I could make much more money doing what I do for a living, but I did it. So anyway, Josh had joined the group when it was free, and he was getting results, but he stopped. And so after a couple of months, he realized that he wasn't as effective anymore. So he came back into the group. But later on, about, I guess it's now over 2 years ago, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Bert, I'd love to do a presentation to the group." And I was more than happy to let him do that, and I did. And he revealed some interesting things for me. Number one is he had adopted, I had set a goal to make $100,000 a month, and Josh had done the same thing, and he had just achieved that, which was a spectacular achievement. In addition to that, Josh revealed that when he joined the group, he was in a bad place. He had a business selling bootlegged videos, and he had, just shortly after he started in my group, been raided by the FBI, who took possession of all the videos, froze his bank accounts, and basically he took all his money and took all his product. So he was essentially out of business. And he didn't know how he was going to pay the attorney bills and whether he was going to jail and all that. And so he added something to a statement that was in my statement, and that is this phrase: "Everything has been resolved in my favor." Now, for me, I changed it later on, because as I began saying everything has been resolved in my favor, I started to realize that I was blessed. And so I added, "Everything has been resolved in my favor, for I am truly blessed." And for whatever the reason, things began to change for me as they changed for Josh. And consequently, he found another business that he could do that didn't require a lot of upfront capital. He applied himself to it. And if you'll listen to his video, you'll hear the statement. And you'll get an idea of how powerful it can be. But more importantly, by watching him, you'll see that, number one, it's memorized. And there's a certain, I was reading in a book that somebody said that back in the days when Napoleon Hill wrote the book, that, he suggests that you memorize it because that's how they taught things in school. You had these long speeches and you had to memorize them. But that may have been part of the reason why, but it's not. The reason why is if it's memorized, that means that you always know what your goal is. It's part of your memory. And so you can recall it, just like you can recall up perhaps your Social Security number, or some people their driver's license. But it's really critical to memorize your statement. In fact, I used to tell people that you could throw a glass of water in my face at 3 in the morning and I could recite my statement. Now, if you were to do that today, I'd already be awake, so it wouldn't be even an issue. But it's really critical that you do that. And you must set yourself up to win. This is a new habit. And so the problem with the problem with habit is habit itself. All the habits that you've had in the past have made you who you are today. So now you must adopt success habits. Now, I'll share with you something that let me just check the time here. All right, so we're still good. When I left the hospital, I set a goal for my health, because one of the worst things you can do when you get sick is go to WebMD, and that's what I did. And that's when I began to realize that my problem wasn't as simple as a heart attack. And so with the statistics of the mortality rates for congestive heart failure, I was very depressed. And one of the things that turned me around was that my older son, and you may have seen me posting pictures of him, The kid's just incredible, in my opinion. I mean, he's done things that I never did, and he's done them sooner than I did. What's funny is about 4 years ago, I went to eBay and I found this beautiful copy of Think and Grow Rich. And I bought two of them, one for each of my sons. And I gave it to Mark, and I asked him to please read it. You know, I wanted him to have an impact from it. And so a month or two went by, and I forgot about it. And I remembered it, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, did you read the book?" And he says, "Dad, I don't have to read that book." I'm like, "Why not?" He says, "Dad, don't you remember every time I got into the car, you were playing Think and Grow Rich or Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, and I'm sitting there with my mouth wide open because they fought me on listening to the audios. But when you got into my car, there was either a cassette player there or a CD player at some point, and I would not listen. I would not allow the radio to play in my car. It was always an audio, and it surprised me because he's like, I've heard that all my life. And so I said, wow, because he would say, "Dad, shut that shit off. I want to listen to music." And my wife at that time would echo similar sentiments. But I said, "No, if you don't want to listen to what I want to listen to, you can walk." And, you know, the kid is incredible. You know, by the time he was 30, he owned a house. He's making close to $200,000 a year now. He's got a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. He's got a fitness business going as a side gig now. He's just got his black belt in June in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which takes 8 to 10 years. And he also fought me on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to use him as a practice dummy, and I had to pay him so I could practice the moves in the basement with him. So, but he's amazed me, you know. Unfortunately, my younger kid, by the time he came around, I was so brainwashed that I didn't need to listen to the audios as much as I did in the beginning when I was younger. But I walked away from that realizing that there is a power of playing an audio in the background, and people that are listening to it can be influenced by it. In fact, if you ever fall asleep watching television, you're being influenced by whatever is playing while you're sleeping. It's your subconscious mind never goes to sleep. And so one of the things, you know, what ended up happening with Josh, to just finish up that story, is he was able to overcome his problems. He was able to turn his business around, and he made sure that he was on every call. And he did it exactly the way I instructed him to do it, and that is to say it out loud with as much emotion as you can generate. So I'm going to give you, as a wrap-up, and then we'll take some questions, I'm going to give you, I'll tell you another quick story. So from 2013 till about 2017, so it was about 3 years, I held a morning accountability call at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And the purpose of the call was to help people create a new habit. So every morning they would jump on the call, and the purpose of the call was for them to say their statement and hear other people affirm that they were going to accomplish their goal. And the way we do that is by saying, at the end of each person's statement, we say, "It is done." So basically, it's the mastermind feeding back that your goal is done. And that's important. And so for 3 years, I did that consistently. And then after 3 years, I disbanded it because I just didn't have time anymore. I had to move on, and things were starting to happen for me. Now, one of the things that I forgot was that by default, we are negative, okay? And that's not because we want to be negative, but it's because of our hard wiring. We're born to want to preserve our lives. So if we hear negative news, we take that to be possibly news that could save our life. That's why you'll remember negative events in your lifespan more easily than you will positive ones. Childhood trauma is basically a negative event with a lot of emotion. And this is what Napoleon Hill realized. And he said, why can't we take that emotion and apply it to a positive event? And that way, the mind will remember it more and it'll be imprinted more deeply into the subconscious mind. And that's where the whole chapter on autosuggestion is all about, and the subconscious mind. So for about 3 years, I stayed focused. And then right around September of 2017, I made some changes, and I stopped I didn't rewrite my statement. And from September of 2017 till about February of 2019, I didn't repeat my statement out loud every day. My logic was I've been doing this since I was 22 years old. That's a lot of years, 30-something plus years, 31, 32 years. I was doing it. So I felt that at this point I should be programmed. But the problem is that the way the brain works is there cannot be a void. And so if you don't focus on the positives, by default, you will focus on the negatives. Or as Napoleon Hill says, if you aren't money conscious, you will then be poverty conscious. And he goes on to state that, the human mind can only have one thought in it at a time. So if you have positive thoughts, you can't have negative thoughts. And I hear people all the time saying, I'm so concerned about my problems, I don't know what to do. Well, the problem is that you're focused on your problems. And when you focus on something, you attract more of it into your life. And so my message for you today that I want to really impart on you is to create a definite purpose. And that's not enough. The reason everybody fails at New Year's resolutions is, number one, they don't write it down, and number two, they don't repeat it out loud every day. The one thing you'll get is that it must be done out loud every day, and you must see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of whatever the goal is. So I'm going to give you a mini definite main purpose course. And by the way, let me give you a caveat. It's really important that your DMPS, your definite main purpose statement, be in the present tense, okay? The human mind does not know the difference between a real event and an imagined one. If you ever had a dream or a nightmare and you felt like you were there, you understand that. And so it must be in the present tense, because if I say I will have $1 million, then that's instructing my mind that this is not happening now, it's sometime in the future. And so the future, mañana never comes. So the statement must be in the present tense. Now, Art set a goal for 10 years from now. What we have learned is that while it's important to have a long-range point of view, it is also critical that you create a shorter-term goal. The shorter the range of the goal, the higher the motivational power. But since we need to change our thinking, we need to change our beliefs, the right framework is 1 year. And so when you write your statement, you would write it as a 1-year goal. The key is that you must focus first on what we call an umbrella goal, an all-encompassing goal. And you can't have 50 goals, you'll never accomplish it. You don't have enough energy or time to focus on each of those things because they require effort. And so you must have one goal. And what I always recommend is that your definite purpose focus on income. Why income? Because everything stems from income. If you want better health, you need income to pay for it. If you want a good relation, what's the number one reason for divorce? Financial problems, right? It's like 53% of people that are divorced, it's because of financial problems. If you want a good lifestyle, you need money. In this environment, in this society, in this capitalistic system, you need to focus on money. If you want a new house, you need money. If you want a new car, you need money. If you want friendships, you need money to be able to hang out with your friends. Or whatever it is you need to do, you need money. And so I suggest that you set a 1-year goal, and that deadline would be 1 year from today, and that you write it out in present tense. Now, it's really critical that you have a good template to follow, because when you begin to do the repetition, if you don't write it correctly, you're creating a problem. because whatever you repeat over and over again becomes the truth for you. I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman that wrote down in his statement that he wanted to be debt-free. So every time you say you want to be debt-free, what are you thinking of? Debt. And so he put down, I want to pay off my $50,000 in credit card. I want to pay off the debt to the $150,000 for my college loans. I want to pay off the debt to my mortgage, $200,000, whatever it was. And all he said is debt, 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 debt. But when you talk that much about debt, you're going to attract debt, because what you don't want, what you really want is not to be debt-free. What you really want is a high net worth. If you had $500,000 in real estate debt, but the properties were worth $2 million, that'd be okay. That's good debt. You still have a $1.5 million net worth. The type of debt that you don't want, of course, is consumer debt, which is cars, boats, credit cards. However, you don't focus on paying off debt. What you focus on is increasing your income, because that's the positive. And, of course, you want to focus on reducing the debt, and that would be by saving money. So step one, decide what you want, a 12-year goal of how much money you want to make. What's the guideline we use? I always recommend that you set a goal to double your income. So if last year you made $100,000, which is $8,333 a month and 33 cents, you would set a goal to make $16,666.66 as your goal. And you may say, well, Bert, how do I do that? I don't know how to make double my income, Don't worry about it. The answer will come to you. I had a gal that worked for New York State, and she said the same thing. She said, Bert, I work for the state government. The best I can expect is a 3% increase. And I said, well, you need to find a side gig. And that's what she did. She got involved, and she realized, with some introspection, I asked her, what are some skills that she had that she could market? And she began doing consulting work. And today she has a successful coaching and consulting business, which makes her enough money, I believe, to, I think she still is with the state. I guess she never gave up the idea of that security. But she does have the extra income coming in from her side business, and that's her passion. So if you don't have a job that pays a lot, by saying that you're making double the money, you'll begin to look for the answers. The thing is that as you begin to say your statement, you'll begin to believe it. So during those 2 years that I didn't say my statement, I began getting negative, like everybody else in the world. And so I had to go back and realize that even 30 plus years of programming isn't enough, because our society in general is negative. And especially today with all the politic nonsense and threats all over the world, Iran and North Korea and who knows what else will be coming up the line. We have enough negative news that if we focus on the news, we become very negative. And today, it's even harder to avoid the news because you have it in your Twitter feed, in your Instagram feed, in your Facebook feed. It's permeation. And so if you're constantly focusing on the negatives in the news, you're going to begin to feel negative. And consequently, it'll affect your performance. So one of the things I do is if I see anybody posting any political nonsense for either side, I immediately stop following them. I don't spend any time. I don't want to see my Facebook feed is not meant to be the news. I don't want it to be. And so I don't subscribe to any news services on Facebook. I eliminated that altogether. So we decide what our goal is. It's a 12-month goal. We decide to double our income, and then we begin the repetition process. So we write out our statement. When we write out our statement, the statement should not be more than a half a page. Okay? It shouldn't take more than a minute to a minute and a half to read out loud. And when we read it with emotion. Now, Napoleon Hill says that you're supposed to read your statement with faith. The problem is, he says, is that initially you're not going to have faith. And so how do we say our statement? Well, you kind of yell it out with enthusiasm. And if you watch some of the videos in the group or Josh's video, you'll see he's kind of yelling it out. And so you need to increase your vibration, and you need to put it out there. And the reason you want to do it out loud is because you'll find that when you first write it, you'll feel uncomfortable talking about what you're going to do out loud. But as you begin to do it, when I first started doing this years ago, I was in a mastermind group, and we had to get up and everybody had to read their statement. And there was 19 other people in the group, and I was like embarrassed, because I'm thinking they're going to judge me, right? And I went around the room and I heard everybody's statement, and that night I went home and I began modifying mine. My goals went up because I heard other people's goals, and I looked at them and I'm like, they're no different than me. I got on there that I'm going to make $50,000. This guy's talking about 150. I got to think bigger, and that's the thing is if you join a mastermind group and you hear other people's goals, you're going to think bigger. One of the guys that was in my mastermind group is Toby. You may have seen Toby posting that he recently just got his doctorate. And, when he joined my group, he told me, I helped him compose his statement, and he shared with me that he wanted to have that, and he'd been after that goal for 10 or 15 years. And I told him, put it in your statement and he started calling himself Dr. Toby, and I forget how to pronounce his last name. And he told me that when he went to restaurants, with the app Open Kitchen or Open Space, there's an app for booking your hotel reservations, he put in there doctor. So they would page him, Dr. Toby, your table is ready. And he began hearing that over and over again. Now, he also had another interesting thing, and that is I also recommend that you do the self-confidence formula. And if you have read Think and Grow Rich, the self-confidence formula is in the chapter on faith, because faith is belief, and self-confidence is belief in yourself. You will never rise above your level of self-confidence. Every decision you've made in life is based on your level of confidence. And so if you don't believe you can sell, you probably will not go into sales. If you don't believe you can be in a business, if you're not confident that you can run a business, you'll never start a business. The most critical component of achieving any goal is belief. If you look back throughout your history, the only times that you have accomplished something is when you believed you could accomplish it. And if you've tried something but didn't believe that you could do it, you didn't do it. And so the process of doing the statement out loud is it builds belief in yourself and in your abilities. So we write out our statement in positive, present tense. We then begin to read it out loud. Now, Napoleon Hill says that you should do it twice a day. And what he picks are the two most important times, and that's the first thing in the morning and the last thing before you go to bed at night. And the reason why is when you first wake up, the brain is a little bit groggy, sleepy, and so you bypass the conscious filter and go directly into the subconscious mind. The second time is when you're going just before you go to sleep, because of the same reason. Your brain is tired, fatigued, and so the conscious filter will not be as effective in stopping the information. However, Napoleon Hill, if you've watched any of his rare recordings, has said that you should do the statement more than that. He says if you may do it 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 times. The reason why is because this is a process of replacing the negative thoughts that you already have in there. And so you need to replace those thoughts with positive thoughts. And the more you repeat your statement with spaced repetition, that means you do it in intervals, the faster you'll replace the negatives. Now, on next week's call, we're going to talk about one of my mentors who showed me gave me the template that I currently use and teach, and also gave me some tweaks on how to do my statement and what to add to it, which is really critical, because it's not enough to have a statement of the goal. The process of achieving the goal is who you become, right? This is all about changing habits. And so the first habit you have to adapt is the habit of first writing out your statement and then the process of beginning to say it out loud. You can't just read it to yourself silently. One of the ways that you can do it is you can write out your statement on one side, take on the other side, print out the self-confidence formula, go and get it laminated at Office Max or Staples for $1, or get yourself a laminator like I have for $30 on Amazon, and then put a hole through it and hang it in your shower. Have a copy that you keep by your bedside. Have a copy in your car. If you really want to master this, if you really want to change and achieve your goals, you need to saturate your environment with pictures of your goals. I usually take my goal for the month and I print it up and stick it somewhere on a wall so I can see it. I have a picture of the yellow Corvette convertible that I want. I have a picture of the Sea Ray Sundancer 260 sport yacht that I want. These are the things that are going to motivate you. And as Art says, he would look at that card, put it on a 3x5 card or a business card, write down the goal, and then keep it in your pocket so you can review it often. The more you saturate your mind with what you want, the better it's going to be. But the most critical component, you can do all these other things, but the most critical one is that you must write it down and you must begin saying it out loud every day. Now, I recommend when you first start out is do it 5 times a day, no less. You make a commitment to yourself that you're going to do it 5 times a day. And then you must begin to believe that this will happen. You can't have doubts. So how do you stop the doubting? Somebody once asked me. I said, you say to yourself, I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know it will happen. It must happen. It is done. I don't know how it's going to be done. I don't know the plan. Listen, Mark Zuckerberg never figured he'd have $1 billion business. He thought it was going to be $1 million business. When the IPO came out for Facebook, it didn't have a monetized model. It really wasn't making any money. But they knew that if you have 1 billion subscribers to his platform, that eventually you can figure out how to make money. And now today, after Google, Facebook is the most searched, has the highest search numbers and viewers. I mean, today I believe they have over 1 billion people online every day. It's changed the world, the way the world is, right? Before Facebook, we didn't care about likes or taking selfies of ourselves. Who the hell cared about that crap? Now it's some people's entire lives. So what do I recommend? In addition to writing out your statement, the second and most important thing that you must have is accountability. You're trying to change a habit. And so therefore, you must have accountability. You must surround yourself with a group of individuals that are like-minded. So I recommend that you join a mastermind, but not any mastermind. You need to join a mastermind that will support you in this new decision to change. And so I have a Think and Grow Rich mastermind group that I would encourage you to look into so that you can join a group of highly motivated individuals. We have people in there who are making, $500,000 a year in real estate. We have doctors in the group, chiropractors, business owners. We have a guy who owns a cattle ranch up in Washington State. We have a diverse group of individuals that are in sales, business owners, consultants, network marketers, lots of network marketers. I mean, Derek Bentley, who's my good friend, who also was mentored by the same guy I was, he has a statement, and next week you'll be listening to his statement and his mentor statement and some of the other people that I have, and you'll hear a story from a friend of mine named Ralph and how he used the statement to basically change his life around. The guy was living in a tent in the yard of a friend, and he used the statement and the self-confidence formula to get out of that, and within 18 months, he had made over $1 million. Now, you may be listening to this, and you may say, that can't be. How do you do that? Well, you know what? You don't know what you don't know. And he did do that, and the story is pretty amazing, but it goes back to persistence and the application of the statement. It was the statement that saved his life. Same thing with Derek, and same thing with me. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up because my voice is getting tired. For questions, please ask some questions. I want you all to get the most value from this. If you have a lot of background noise, please mute yourself. And when you go to ask a question, just give me your first name so I know who you are, and then ask. Okay, everybody's unmuted. So we got over 20 people on the call, so let's get at least one or two questions so that we can really sink in the learning. So go ahead, I'm waiting for the first person. I've got your name. I'll call on you if I have to.
Hey, my name's Larry Crosby. It's the first time I've been on one of these calls, and I appreciate it.
No problem. What did you get from the audio?
Well, that was actually my question. I did not see the email and the invitation until the call was already going for about 30 or 35 minutes. So has this call been recorded to where I can go back and listen to it again?
Yeah, it is. I'll be posting that probably tomorrow morning.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi,
Thank you for your question. Sure. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Williams. I'm calling on the line from Mobile, Alabama. Again, I would like to say thank you. I was reading Thinking We're Reached last month, and, it's just everything just come back and resonates with me. And I just want to know, how do you join the Thinking Grow Rich Mastermind?
If you will message me on Facebook, I'll get you some information. That'll be the easiest way.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, no problem. How about a question about the audio, those of you that heard it? Do you have any questions regarding the audio or any comments about it?
Hey, Bert, this is Olga.
Hi, Olga.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you very much. I've been following you before, and I know I did 100 DMPS, and everything was beautiful, and then I forgot about it. Everything went wrong. So we started going back, and I've been doing this for about 60, 90 days almost. My goal was to do it for 120 days. And I remember when I called you, I told you my life was a mess, but I was doing it persistence. And this is my question. Because I've been doing the persistence about my work, and I know one of the rules, it was to be posting every day. I still doing my DMPS. I don't forget to be posting. I just get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to the gym. And next thing I know, it's 11 p.m. So I just feel like freaking I don't know what you did to me, but I have you in my mind every single moment. Persistence. And but I still not being persistent posting. And when I realized it's already like Monday and next thing is Wednesday, and it's like, oh my god, I forgot to be posting. What kind of
put it in your statement with a time. I enjoy posting my accountability on Facebook at 10 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, or 7 days a week, whatever it is. Put it in your statement.
There you go. You go. Ding dong.
Set an alarm. 10 o'clock. Post on statement.
I'm doing my DMPS like 10 times a day, but it's not that I'm forgetting. I just get very busy. But however, let me tell you that since I started going back to you and doing the DMPS, my life is completely changed, and things are getting
let me just clear this up for everybody listening. DMPS is definite main purpose statement. Okay, it's what we've been talking about and what Art talked about. Olga, share with us. I know that Olga was in my group way back in the beginning in 2015, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And she was the first person to really challenge everybody. She did her definite main purpose statement 100 times, over 100 times, if I remember correctly, in one day, which is hard, believe me. And it takes time and commitment. And consequently, 5 other people after her committed and completed it, even though most of us lost our voice. But we did it, and it was just expanding what we believed we could do. Because at that point in time, everybody felt that 5 times a day was so impossible. You know, it takes a minute to a minute and a half to do your statement. So spending 5 to 7 minutes a day, out of 24 hours is such a big investment, right? But mentally that was the barrier. But once they did 100, doing 10, 15, 20 times a day became a no-brainer, So Olga got away from doing her statement, which is the same problem that I experienced. And so consequently, things started going backwards, right?
Yes. I started, and one of the things, I was a little overweight, and I was like, I am so beautiful, sexy, powerful, I'm working up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. I am, And so before I was like, there's no way I getting up my skinny booty at 4 o'clock in the morning. Next thing you know, I was at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's snowing, cold, freezing. I can care less. But I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was in the gym. Probably I was the only one in there, but who cares? And, in 30 days, I was beautiful, sexy, powerful, attractive, because I was listening, and I believe it. Like the first couple of days, I didn't believe it. However, then I said, I'm very successful. I am the master in real estate. Next thing I know, I was making $1 million deals in real estate. And therefore, but then I become very comfortable being sexy, beautiful, attractive, and rich. And I was like, nah. But then after a year, I forgot about it. And then everything started going wrong because I was like very comfortable.
I've seen your transformation on Facebook in the last couple of months. Yeah.
Yes, in the last couple of months, I called you and I was like, Bert, I'm so broke, I'm so. and I like, wait a minute. I started doing my DMPS, and for everybody who's listening, guys, listen to Bert. This helps really amazing. It don't matter if you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, whatever your goal it is, you must do to DMPS and least. I would say at least 20 times a day. What? That's crazy. Trust me. If you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, by 10 p.m., you did more than 20 times. I did 100 times, and now I'm doing like about 40 times a day, but it's working. I am beautiful, sexy, and I'm getting back to where I deserve to be living, the life that I'm living. And you know what, guys? It's not easy. It's not easy because every freaking moment you're like, I'm so broke, I'm so fed, I'm broke. No. Change your mind. Change the stage. You must believe the statement. And if you don't believe it, screw it. You will believe it once you keep going and going and going and going and going. Fake it till you make it. That's it.
Yeah, that's so true. In 2017, I stopped doing my statement, and part of my statement said I am a lean, fit, muscular, 165-pound man that enjoys working out 5 times per week without fail. And I took that out, and I went from 165 to 185 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, shit. So here's the good news. About 2 weeks ago, I put it back in my statement, and I began doing my statement in more earnest. And I put in, I am a lean, fit, muscular, 165-pound man that works out at least 5 times a week. I enjoy doing 30 minutes of cardio and a 45-minute strength training session Monday through Friday. One of the things I make it is as specific as possible with times. I'm glad to report that this morning, I weighed 174.6 pounds. I've lost almost 11.4 pounds in less than 2 weeks. So, if I wasn't saying it every day, it would not be in my mind. This is about putting what you want in front of you every day. When you write a New Year's resolutions, you forget about them. By saying the statement every day, you remind yourself of what's important to you in your life. It's like having me following you around all day and saying, hey, how you doing on your goal? Hey, how you doing on your goal? Besides being annoying, you'd still remember about your goal, and you'd be like, okay, I got to focus on my goal. So this creates a bird cage in your mind. So it constantly reminds you, and I'll tell you the bird cage story some other time, but it's constantly reminding you of what's important to you and why you want it. Everybody says, if you have a big enough why, the how doesn't matter. Well, the definite main purpose statement is your why. and it has to be
and
emotional.
you know what, Bert, can I say something really quick now that you say
Sure,
why?
sure.
I gotta tell you something. When I started with you, I was 180 pounds, and I hired my daughter, which is 18, as a coach. And the first day she fired me. She's like, Mom, you have to run. And I was like, there's no way I'm running more than 100 feet. No way. And she's like, Mom, you're so fired. And you know what? And that was my why. I was like, you know what? Hell no. So I said, you know what? And then I called you. And I said, and when I went to see Tony Robbins, I have 30 cents in my pocket. And I said, in 30 days, Bert Hernandez, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, and I'm going to have $30,000 in my pocket in 30 days. Watch me doing my freaking DMPS 100 times a day. And in 30 days, I had $45,000 in my pocket, and I was 30 pounds less. Guys, this works. Guys, these work. These freaking.
It also helps to have the right vehicle. And Olga is in real estate business, and there's if you don't have the degrees and the connections that you need in life, then you better have a business of your own or be in sales, because there's no place else where you can have unlimited income. And so I'm going to take one last call. Thank you very much, Olga, for that testament. I know that it was hard for you. It's hard to say things that you don't believe in when everything around you is pointing in a different direction. And that's why I put in my statement, when things weren't working for me, everything has been resolved in my favor, for I am truly blessed. Because I didn't know where to go. So I had to believe that everything will be resolved. I had faith that it would happen. I didn't know how. I didn't care about the how. The how is what destroys you. Because as soon as you set a goal to make $100,000 a month or $50,000 a month or $10,000 a month, and you've never made that before, your brain goes immediately, how am I going to do that? Yeah. And that's where you kill yourself. So I hope that, I'll take one more question, but I hope that my purpose here is to really pass along this passion that I have for the definite main purpose statement. And I've interviewed thousands of people to join my mastermind over the last 3 years. And the one thing I found is I found one guy, out of all the thousands that I spoke to, that had actually applied the principles in Think and Grow Rich. He had formed a company, and in that company, it was 6 individuals in that company. They each had a definite main purpose statement, and the first thing they did every morning when they showed up at the office is they stood around and they each said their definite main purpose statement. He also created a definite main purpose statement for the company that he would read out loud. Then once the workday was over at 5, 6 o'clock at night, everybody would go down to this small church that was nearby that had this beautiful fountain, he said, and they would stand around the fountain, and they would, again, do their definite main purpose statement, more quietly, of course, because they're in a church, and he would, again, read the company's definite main purpose. And then he said some of the guys would then stay in the church and pray, others would leave. And when he told me this, I said, there's nothing I can teach you. You already figured it all out. Because he had all the components. Number 1 is he had already identified his goal for himself and for his company. Number 2, he was doing the repetition every day. And 3 is he had surrounded himself with like-minded individuals that were focused on the same thing. That was his employees, which he called them partners. But let's take one more call, and then we'll go ahead and end this. So go ahead and give me your first name and your question.
Bert, this is Jay. Just a quick question with respect to self-confidence formula. How many times are we supposed to do that? The self-confidence formula.
I do it 5 times a day.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay? No less than 2, but 5. Look, you know how long it takes? Listen. First, I know that I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here now promise to render such action. Second, I know that the dominating thoughts of my mind will reproduce themselves in outward physical action and transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. Third, I know through the principle of autosuggestion that any purpose or desire that I persistently hold in my mind will seek expression in Will seek expression. Will seek expression. My brain is working overtime today. Let's see, hold on. Will seek expression and transform itself into physical reality. Therefore, I devote 10 minutes daily to the demanding of myself, the development of self-confidence. Fourth, I have clearly written down a description of my definite purpose, and I shall never stop until I have developed sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. I sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud daily with full faith that it is continually influencing my thoughts and actions, affirming that I am a self-reliant, strong, powerful, confident, and successful man of action. I thank you, God, for it is done. That took what, maybe a minute and a half? So if I do that 5 times, I spent what? You have 960 minutes a day. So between the statement and your self-confidence formula, you spent maybe 10, 15 minutes telling yourself what you want, who you want to be, what you want to have in your life. Come on. Think about it this way. If you're not willing to do that, then how badly do you want to succeed?
Right.
I mean, Paul Meyer used to tell me that he wanted to succeed so badly that he would be willing to crawl over broken glass. You know how much desire you have to want to crawl over broken glass?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of desire. Yeah. I mean, I do not only my self-confidence formula, I do my statement. I also do the poem, Don't Quit. I do the poem, Beaten. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win and you think you can't, it's almost certain you won't. I read these every day, 5 times a day for a statement and a self-confidence formula, and 2 times a day for the other 2. Why? Because it's important. I make the time for it, like anything else that you want to accomplish. All right, everybody. I hope I imparted to you that this is really the most important thing you can do. Whatever you want in your life, you do this. Next week, you'll listen to Rich Thawley, who is one of the 85 people that Art Williams trained, and he will tell you this is exactly what he did. He heard Art tell the guys that they need to write down what they want and they need to read it out loud every day with emotion, and that's exactly what he did. And if you Google Rich Thawley, Thawley, you'll see that he's a national senior marketing director with World Financial Group, which is owned by Transamerica, and he's worth a couple of $1 million. If you Google Hubert Humphrey, like the president, and you type in the words, the initials WFG, World Financial Group, you'll see that Hubert sold his company for about, he started in 1990, sold it in 2002, 10 years later, for just shy of $500 million, and he had made millions before that. And if you go and read about him, you'll see that he'll tell you the way it all started was when he wrote down what he wanted, because that's what's going to keep you driving. That's what's going to keep you going. If you want to become bulletproof, if you want to achieve your goals and be bulletproof against society and all the negatives, and you don't want to lose your motivation, your mojo, then you'll take these recommendations to heart. Decide what you want, write it down, put a deadline on it, and begin repeating it out loud. If you want to know how to do it right, message me, and I'll share with you some of the things that we do to make this happen. The first thing is a template, the definite main purpose template, which is in present tense, and it incorporates not only the statement of the goal, but also we look into your psychology. We want to know where your comfort zone is and where you want to. We give you a test that identifies that, and then we create a statement. For example, I'm a promoter personality. As a promoter personality, I love to promote things. I like to be the center of attention. I like to talk. But the problem is that I hate paperwork. I hate to be punctual. I hate to be disciplined. I hate to be organized. So in my statement, I've been saying for years the following: I am a disciplined, organized, scheduled, responsible, punctual, single-minded, and laser-focused leader that gets things done now.
Wow.
Now, if you say that 5 times a day for 15 or 20 years, guess what? You begin to become disciplined, organized, scheduled, responsible, punctual, single-minded, and laser-focused leader that gets things done on time or before. Because I modified it. Because I was getting it done now, but sometimes just on time. So, I also have in my statement that says, I am a worthy and deserving man that is open to receive all that has been given to me and more. And that statement alone changed my life back in 2016. And I'll share that story with you next week. Part of my statement also says, I am a gorgeous and beautiful man that is open to receive all that has been given to me and more. I am a disciplined, organized, scheduled, responsible, punctual, single-minded, and laser-focused leader that gets things done on time or before. These are part of what's in my statement, because it's not just about the goal, it's also who you need to become. And you will never be a millionaire until you know how a millionaire acts and thinks. And that's what we do. The process of the statement and the auto-suggestion begins to change the way you think. And so you begin to think, listen, can you really accomplish anything in life if you're not disciplined, organized, scheduled, responsible, punctual, single-minded? No. But what if you're more of a thinker type? A person that, does analysis by paralysis, right? You spend too much time thinking about getting stuff done and you never take action. Well, for you, you'd want to put in your statement that you are you're energetic, you act on things, you take action. So you want to have in there the opposite of what your personality type is. And what is your personality type? Your personality type is what was programmed into you during the first 5 or 6 years of your life. It has become your comfort zone. So, a monkey personality or promoter personality like me, back in college, if I had an exam on Tuesday morning, let's say, and there was a party going on Monday night, I'd go to the party, even though I was supposed to be cramming for the test, and I'd wing it in the morning because I'd rather be out partying, be around people than to be sitting in my room studying. So for me, becoming disciplined and organized and scheduled was very critical for success, because otherwise you in sales you would create all these sales and then nobody would follow up on them. You'd let customers down, and so that's not a good thing. So anyway, if you would like to know more about the mastermind and the accountability group, I'm letting people in. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Just message me on Facebook, and we'll set up a short combo so I can get an idea of what you want to accomplish and whether we can help you do that or not. But it's really, really critical. If you do nothing else, is you go back and read the chapter on desire and the chapter on auto-suggestion and begin putting it together. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you that the best way is to have a template that's been proven to work. Unfortunately, the one in the book is all in future tense. That's how I started, and very quickly we changed it to a present tense because when you keep saying I will, it's like your kids telling you, yeah, Mom, I'll clean the room later, or I will, Mom, I'll clean the room, I will. And it never gets done. So the best, and by the way, just to clear up another misconception, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are part of law of attraction groups. There's a belief that when you ask the universe for something, that you leave it open. The problem is if you tell the universe you want more money, all the universe has to give you is $1, and that's more money. The mind does not work based on generalities. That's the first thing that Napoleon Hill says. When you set your goal, you must be specific. It's not enough to say, I want more money. You must be exact in the amount. You have to tell your subconscious mind exactly what you want. You can't go into a dealership and tell the guy, I want to buy a car, okay? Because he doesn't know what kind. He'll say, what kind of car? I don't know, any car. Guess what you'll end up with? What color? Any color. Everything needs to be specific. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so now the kids are sleeping. Let's talk about chapter 11. Just because you teach me about this, about chapter 11, right? And I think you're rich. So Let's talk about the kids are sleeping. So I'm doing my DMPS, and this is talking about the weight. So I'm doing my DMPS. I am beautiful, sexy, attractive, blah, 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 blah. And I'm dating the most amazing, beautiful guy. He's so handsome, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? He's 20 years younger than me. So now we talk about before. And it's like when you become to a relationship, because to me it's important to talk about money, spirituality, and chapter 11. So you guys who don't know what is chapter 11, you better go and read chapter 11. So then,
I'm looking.
Everybody's like, read chapter 11. Now the kids are sleeping. So now, how will this work? Because I was talking to a couple of mastermind friends that I have in our group, and we were laughing, and we were kind of like, what? And I said, you know what? Bert told me to describe the guy that not the guy that I want, but I was like, you know what? He's the most passionate, nice, and he's amazing, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? He came to the picture, but he's 20 years younger than me. So there you go. So what do you think about that? And when you are looking for a relationship, in your own experience, how do I help to put it on my DNPS?
Michael Douglas is 23 years older than his wife.
Yeah, but I'm 20 years older than him.
That's okay.
That's different.
No, it's not. There was an article recently that outlined the age differences. Ryan Reynolds is 11 years older than his wife. There's a bunch of women, I forget them right now, that are 11, 20 years older than their wives. Ellen DeGeneres is 17 years older than her wife. Age is a number. It depends on where you connect. The way you attract somebody in your life is the same way that you would attract a client. So in real estate, you should have a statement that you read every day, of course, describing the type of client you want. If you're looking to sell $1 million homes, then you need to attract people that can afford $1 million homes. So you would identify what that person would be, just like in any business. If I'm targeting people for my coaching group, I'm going to target people that are in real estate, people that are doctors, lawyers, attorneys to come through the group. Attorneys don't work out so well; they're stuck in their heads. But I identified what that prospect looks like, what his age is or her age. Where do they nest is what I look for. So the same thing. So if this person meets the criteria you set, he's open-minded, positive. The first thing I want is somebody that's positive and open-minded, especially if you're looking at a man. Why? Because men tend to be closed-minded. It's just our nature. We think we know everything, right? When you look at the personal development industry, more women are involved in personal development than men. When you go to a Tony Robbins seminar, you see more women than men. Why? Because women are open to change. They understand they don't know everything, so they're willing to learn. Men, unfortunately, if you've ever dated men, you'll see that many of them probably have never been involved in personal development. When you find a man that's involved in personal development, that's somebody who's open-minded to change. Because the one thing we must understand is that we're constantly changing. You are not the same person you are today that you were 5 years ago. And by the same token, you will not be the same person you are today 5 years from now. The only thing that's going to change between who you are today and who you are 5 years from now is the following. The books and audios you read, the people you associate with, and the affirmations or statements that you repeat to yourself over and over and over again. Those are the only three things that will change who you are today. If right now you are not happy, yes.
Like this guy's everything that I asked for, everything. I mean, he's 20 years younger, but he's like, I don't know, I feel that some kind of spirit got to him because his maturity is extremely amazing, and everything is like, oh my God, he's more mature than me. Sometimes I feel like.
So the problem is you. The problem is you. No, the problem is you. The problem is you. You have a belief that says what?
I'm supposed to be dating
because you're dating a teenager.
No, she's not a teenager either. She's like, I'm not dating that teenager. She's 20
I'm just kidding. So the problem is you. You can't. You have to number one, Olga. he has to be, he has to be of legal age. Okay, there are laws in Texas.
25.
I know, but I gotta have some fun. So number one is you need to get over the idea of age. So Paul Meyer had an affirmation that I adopted, which says, "I do not measure my age by the passing of years, but rather by the goals I set and the goals I accomplish." So he wanted a new way of measuring age because he was getting older. He was in his 70s when he wrote this. So you need to have something that you repeat every day that says, "I do not measure a person's age by the passing of years." What is years? Years is how, 1 year is how long it takes for the Earth to circle the sun. What does that have to do with us? I mean, once you hit 21, huh?
I mean, he grew up in the real estate, and he's been doing real estate for 20 years.
Hey, listen, what's the worst that happens? What's the worst that happens? You go for it, and it doesn't work out, right? That's the worst that happens.
I mean, that's not the worst. The worst is like, okay, I was thinking about, like, we talk about when you wanted to attract the person like you want, right? Because in the DMPS, I had attracted, I had the most beautiful, amazing, passionate guy. We make love every single night. He cares about my kids, blah, 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 blah. And he's everything that I asked for. But I didn't really fix age.
Yeah. So listen, just make sure that when you take him to school, you pack his lunch. You make sure.
Oh my God.
I do.
That's all. Make sure you pack his lunch. If he's going to be out from school, make sure you write a note to the teacher. Everything is fine. Listen, if this is the worst problem in your life, God bless you. Right? All right, I'm going to end the call. Olga's going to go make lunch for. Go ahead, go make lunch for him for tomorrow. All right, you have a great day. You'll get over it. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Glad you appreciate it. Take care.
Love you guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.